Back live with you tonight and in focus. Thanks for staying on. Government has called on unions to return to the negotiating table after wage talks deadlock in the public sector. This after their employer refused to give into the demand for a 10% increase, sending the Public Servants Association back to the bargaining council. For more on this, we're now joined by the Public Servants Association President, Dr. Lufuno Mulaudzi. Dr. Mulaudzi, good evening and thank you very much for joining us tonight here on In Focus. Is there an appetite amongst public servants to go back to the negotiating table? It seems this is what the minister is calling you to, saying anyway the process for negotiating the 2023-2024 deal is now due.
Good evening, Tavo and Newzroom Afrika viewers at home. To answer your question, Public Servants Association of South Africa, PSA, we have been ready to negotiate with the employer for quite some time, but unfortunately the employer was not coming to the negotiating table in good faith. So for us to return where the employer has just abandoned the collective bargaining process, it's highly impossible. It's highly impossible that we can even start talking about the 2023-2024 wage negotiation cycle when the employer is not willing to listen to the demands of public servants.
Yeah. What do you mean when you say the employer has completely abandoned the collective bargaining process?
Tavo, you will remember that in 2020, the employer reneged on Resolution 1 of 2018. They failed to implement the last leg of that resolution after implementing two phases of that resolution. And then again this year, the employer, when they started the negotiations, they started with 0%, which shows how arrogant the employer is. And they moved from 0% to almost 2%. And then later on, they moved to 3%. And then when they moved to 3%, we declare a dispute because we wanted 10%. We declared a dispute, and then when we declared the dispute, it led to us being served with a certificate to strike, and then we served notice to the employer that we intend on going to an industrial action, which commenced a week before our march to Treasury on the 10th of November. So you can see that we are dealing with people who are not willing to come to the table. They, when we launched the dispute, when we were about to strike, it was informed by the mere fact that the employer has indicated at the council that they are withdrawing that 3% offer. It means that that 3% offer was not there anymore. But to our surprise, during the medium-term policy budget statement by the Minister of Finance, Mr. Enoch Godongwan, a pronouncement was made that the government is going ahead in implementing that 3% that they indicated at the collective bargaining council that the offer is no longer there. So we expected that if they are saying that they were saying that the offer is no longer there, we were expecting the employer to say, let's start a new round of negotiations so that we start from the scratch. Yeah. But they didn't do that. And subsequent to that pronouncement during the medium-term budget policy budget statement, the employer went ahead to implement that 3%.
Why would you say, I mean, in your own understanding, the minister is speaking with a forked tongue here? How can they say in one statement that the 2022-2023 chapter is now closed on record, yet the minister says, but let's come back to the negotiating table. We want to resolve the dispute.
Thabo, hence I said that we are dealing with people who are confused. We are dealing with people who are arrogant. If you have the response from Treasury after we marched there on the 10th, you'll see that they keep on repeating the same thing. To say implementing that 3%, it doesn't mean that the room for negotiations is closed. They appeal to the employer, represented by the Minister of Public Service and Administration and Labour, to go back to negotiate and try to break this wage impasse. How do you go back when already one party has undermined the other party by implementing something that was not agreed on by all the parties?
So as the parties, are you all in agreement that you want the implementation of the 3% completely stopped, completely scrapped at this point?
No, at the moment, you'll remember that 3% have been implemented. We are saying we demand 10%. So if we are saying we demand 10%, it means that the employer have already paid 3%. They need to add 7% to make it 10%. That's what we are demanding.
Yeah.
And in fact, before we took over the streets of Pretoria on the 10th, we were saying we are willing to go down to 6.5, of which the employer arrogantly so. They came and say they are offering 7.5%. By 7.5% that they are saying they are offering, they are referring to a 1,000 gratuity, which is non-pensionable and which is going to be eradicated come the 31st of March next year. So we are saying we need 10%.
And are your members then, what you're saying to us currently, already seeing that 3% and that 1,000 rands non-pensionable gratuity? And they are, of course, accepting that because it's already being implemented. They are not calling for it to be withdrawn and taken back.
No. Our members are waiting in anticipation that the 7%, which will make it 10%, will come in because the employer already implemented 3%. So they are waiting. Hence, you saw subsequent to our march on the 10th of November, both federations, FEDUSA, COSATU, and SAPTU, marched again to Treasury on the 22nd of November with almost the similar memorandum that was handed to the Acting Minister of Public Service and Administration, Mr. Thulas Nesi. And then on Friday the 9th, you could have seen that in Cape Town, there was a march by all those federations to the parliament, demanding the same thing.
So let's talk then about what the minister is saying. The minister is saying, in essence, it's 7.5% that is on offer when they, of course, put the 3% and the 1,000 rands gratuity. And you're saying it is not, and you want the 7.5% to actually be on the baseline across the board.
Yes, that's exactly what we are looking for. What the minister is saying, he is not telling the truth, but we don't blame him. Remember that he's not a minister, he's not a permanent minister of public service and administration. That department, since the departure of the former minister, Madam Ayanda Jojo, it has been without a minister, and we are surprised that such a crucial department, the president does not see it fit to appoint a permanent minister there. That's why you see that even these problems that we are having are not resolved, because there's no one permanent there. So Mr. Ngesi is just a person who is standing in, and I very sympathize with him, because he didn't know even when it started, this thing of our problems with the DPSA.
So on the 10th, you gave them 7 days to respond. It doesn't seem that they responded favorably, because you went back again on the 22nd. Did you give them another deadline for them to respond? And when is that deadline?
No, they responded. We got their response just on the eve of the Cape Town March on the 9th. The response is quite similar to the response that PSA received, that the employer is not threatening collective bargaining, which is not true. They know that they are threatening collective bargaining, and the wide range of issues that they've addressed in the response that we received as PSA. So they've been consistent in trying to mislead the general public.
What's the next step of action then from PSA?
The next step of action from PSA, we are going to intensify our picketing during lunchtime, and we also want the president, because Tabo, you'll realize that since the start of these problems, the president of the country has never said anything about this thing, like it's not a national issue. This issue is a national issue when collective bargaining is being threatened. One would hope that the president of the country will come out and say, I sympathize with the unions, I sympathize with public servants, and instruct his ministers to do the right thing and go and give public sector unions offer that is acceptable, offer that is not below inflation.
Appreciate your time, Dr. Mulaudzi. Thank you so much for coming on. That is Public Servant Association President, Dr. Lufuno Mulaudzi.